Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, we've got a full preview of tonight's main event, the only game on the NHL schedule. It's the Nashville Predators taking on your Ottawa Senators.
And after a 7-2 loss last game, Jacques Martin decided, hey, it's about time we switch up these lines. So we'll take a look at the Sens lines at practice.
I really didn't need to be reminded of the score of Saturday's game. Sogaard had to mop up the mess. He starts in goal, and the big question is, should the Senators let its Great Dane off the leash long term? Let's get into that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 969 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers in the U.S. get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 wager. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Today is Monday, January 29th, and this is an NHL fan's dream. Sens and Preds on a Monday night. Feel the excitement.
Yeah, Ross, coming off the championship games in the NFL, the NHL said, all right, hold my beer, NFL. We're going to have a spotlight matchup on the Ottawa Senators and the Nashville Predators. Let's go.
These two teams went 1-1 against each other last season. There's some fun names when you throw out, we always do on Twitter, who's your favorite Senators player that used to play for? Name the opponent's team. Today it was the Nashville Predators. Great answers. You can check out the full list on Twitter at Sens Central. I was actually surprised some of the names that were being thrown out there. Anton Volchenkov, Greg DeVries, we saw somebody say. So there's some really rich history between these two teams. I say tongue-in-cheek, but when you look at it with the Kyle Turris, Matt Duchene swap in that three-way trade with Colorado, these two teams, though, last year, it was all goalies all the time when these two teams played. Sens fans who went to the Canadian Tire Center last January 9th, they got to see UC Saros at his best. It was a 38-save shutout for UC Saros in that 3-0 win against the Senators. But tonight, the Senators have to worry about themselves. It was a very embarrassing performance against the New York Rangers on home ice on Saturday. Hopefully, they got all those bad vibes out of their system with the skills competition yesterday. Just a minute on that, Pillsy. Jacob Chychrun, that has to be one of the hardest shots in NHL history. He hit 107.1 miles per hour on the radar.
Yeah, that's crazy. What Chara hit 110 that one All-Star game, right? I think that's the all-time record, isn't it?
Zdeno Chara is 108.8.
Okay, so not quite 110. So you know what, Ross? That's not that surprising though. Like we talked about it. I forget when it was. I had this whole kind of rant about how I wanted Jacob Chychrun to get back to being the trigger guy on the second power play unit like he was, or like he seemed to be when he first came over after the trade deadline. He has an absolute cannon, and they're just not utilizing that enough, in my opinion, especially when it comes to the man advantage.
Yes, and we're about to get into the power play lines, which have been shuffled, changed. It's kind of strange because the Sens power play, I mean, small sample size alert. You can look to the larger picture, and it hasn't been that great. It's actually been brutal. But in the last two games, they've converted 3 times. 3 of their last 4 power plays. They've found the back of the net, but they have made some major changes. And just to finish off that hardest shot thought, Martin Frk, a name everybody knows, Martin Frk. He actually has the hardest recorded shot in pro hockey, 109.2 miles per hour in the AHL skills competition. We do have a little AHL talk, a little note, Sens prospect movement at the end of today's show, so stay tuned for that. A friend of the show is coming to America. What a great movie that was with Eddie Murphy, but that's neither here nor there. The power play units are neither here nor there when you're looking for one-timers on the second unit, though, Pilsy. Our friend Claire Hanna posted the lineups, and you've got, well, in the second unit, nobody's on their strong side in terms of getting one-timers off. I was a little surprised by that. Why don't you run down? Claire posted what these full lineups are, and then we'll get into what we like and what we don't like.
We're going to do the full Sens lineup right now?
No, the power play units.
Okay, the power play units. So the top power play unit, you got Brady Tkachuk in front of the net, obviously. I think that we can put that in chiseled in stone for the rest of the time Brady's here. He's going to be in that position. Then you got Claude Giroux on the left side, Pinto in the bumper, and Norris in his classic office one-time spot on the right. And you got Sanderson as at the top of the umbrella. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The second power play unit, Drake Batherson is in front of the net, Jacob Chychrun on the left side, Tarasenko in the bumper position, and Stützle on the right side with Chabot on the umbrella. Ross, I don't mind that first unit. I think I've said it a bunch. Giroux and Pinto have such great chemistry, and I love the way they're able to kind of do those one-touch passes in that bumper area there. And then Norris, you want him on his strong side so that he can get that one-timer off. You want Tkachuk in front of the net, and Sanderson is your best defenseman, so you have him on there. That first unit, totally fine. Nothing wrong with that. The second unit really makes me scratch my head here. We just talked about it. Jacob Chychrun, get him on his strong side so he can get that one-timer off, but Chychrun is on the left side here. Tarasenko, a guy that, he's not really known for his one-timer. He's more of a kind of catch-and-shoot type guy. So he's in the bumper position. I don't hate that. Timmy can set him up quickly. But then Timmy also, he's on the right side. But I don't want him being kind of the trigger guy for that one-timer. And then Batherson in front of the net, that I'm okay with. He's a big body in front, and he is pretty good with the one-touch pass at the side of the net to kind of activate that bumper spot. So, I mean, it's okay. And I guess you got to try different stuff, but I'm so baffled as to why Chychrun is not on that right side.
So am I. And we'll see how this works in a game. To me, this screams that Tarasenko is their primary shot option, and they're going to try to get movement down on the wings because the sticks are going to be closer to the board. So if there's a hard rim around, maybe that's something that Daniel Alfredsson has noticed. And there have been too many easy clears as well. So maybe you get the guys on their side where they're able. It is we're calling it the strong side. It's really the weak side, but you're strong on your power play because you want the one-timer.
Yeah.
But when it comes to having the shots, at least Chychrun, maybe that's what it is. I'm trying to figure it out because it doesn't make much sense to me. And you'll get into Norris a little bit more later in the show, but that guy to me would be on the second unit right now. No questions asked. But these are the Sens power play units. Let us know what you think in the comments. I'm curious to know where things are going to lead here. Now, the one thing I know I like, but again, I'm curious because Giroux's been one of those guys where if he's on the right side, he's got this beautiful little Pinto setup for the one-timer in the middle, but they've almost taken that away now if he's on Pinto's left, and Pinto's a right-hand shot. Now, the other part of this is you've only got one right shot guy on your second unit, which I find pretty interesting. Now, the Senators are dominant on the left side anyways. You only have two on your top unit as well. So I guess one way or another, you're going to leave a left shot alone or a right shot alone on a unit. But I'm curious to see how these are going to work. We'll find out sooner rather than later. Like I said, the Sens power play, at least it's kind of figuring it out a little bit in a small sample size. They only had one opportunity and they scored. Oh, who could have guessed? It was a Chychrun one-timer coming down on his weak side that was able to put the Senators on the board, put them up 2-0 before everything fell apart. Now, the Nashville Predators, conversely, are a bad team on the PK. They're ranked 27th. They're one spot ahead of the Ottawa Senators. So you think the Sens have been bad on the PK? Basically, the same thing goes for the Nashville Predators. The Predators, though, their power play is 3% better than the Ottawa Senators. So special teams will be something to keep an eye on in tonight's game for the Ottawa Senators taking on the Nashville Predators. It's the first of two meetings between these two teams this season. I'm looking forward to tonight's game, Pilsy, a chance to get back in the win column and really flush that Rangers game because it was awful. And we're going to get into a topic that is similar to it, where the goaltending was just not good enough. We talked about it in the postcast. We put it up as a standalone video on YouTube. Have your say about Joonas Korpisalo. For me, I guess it kind of depends what Mads Sogaard does tonight, but I am heavily leaning towards Sogaard playing both games before the All-Star break. We'll have that conversation, look at the Senators lines and the Predators lines on the other side. Plus, Oskar Pettersson, a friend of the show, and now Belleville Senator. That's all next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all those who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Hey, if you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch. You gotta have your seat picked out early. You gotta have the best sight lines, a spot for your drink, a spot for your snacks. You gotta have that all planned out, and you gotta have your bets in place as well. I love the Super Bowl. It's one of my favorite times a year, something to get excited about in February. And there's so many ways you can get even more excited with FanDuel. There's so many ways that you can end the season with a W. Or maybe 2, or how about 3? Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, obviously, but FanDuel has so many other fun bets. Which players will score a touchdown? How many points will be scored? And Ross, this is a wild one that I love from FanDuel. I just saw it today on Twitter. You can bet on either quarterback, so Brock Purdy or Patrick Mahomes, to catch their own pass. Lamar Jackson did it. He caught his own pass, so FanDuel decided to throw that in. If you like that, the odds are pretty juicy at plus 5,000. So you could hit big if you decided to put a couple shekels on that, and so much more. So new customers in the States, you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Today's episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. The passion, the drive, the determination, it's all with eBay Motors. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring it home that win. It's keeping your ride or die alive with ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only. Available to U.S. customers. All right, Pillsy, it's game day. The Ottawa Senators are hosting the Nashville Predators, a 7 o'clock start time at the Canadian Tire Center. Hopefully the Sens put on a better show for their fans than we saw Saturday, where they allowed 7 unanswered goals against the New York Rangers. Now, Pillsy, there were some interesting comments at intermission with Elliot Friedman talking about Chris Tanev as a potential trade target. Now on 32 Thoughts, the podcast this morning, I was listening to it, and it sounds like they're going to try to convince, if this does become a reality, try to convince Chris Tanev that this is going to be a quick turnaround and that he could be a big part of taking a team to the next level next season. Now, the part that was music to my ears is that the Senators do feel like they can compete next season, which makes me believe that they have more faith in this group. And frankly, we're seeing it recently. If you look at the underlying numbers, everything but goaltending is trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
And that, to me, it's scary because you can't win in this league without goaltending. But like seeing these disingenuous stats about like since Jacques Martin took over, they've got the worst goals against. Well, posting that one after they allowed 7 goals in a game is hilarious. And the second time in 2 weeks, they allowed 7 goals. And both games, I think they deserved a better fade in. But I think that to me is a step in the right direction. Now, I don't know if Chris Tanev is the guy, but he certainly fits what this team needs. A right shot defenseman, a pro's pro, a guy who plays the right way on the right side of the puck, defensively reliable. Like that to me, at least the names that are coming out to me are the right guys or the right prototypes of who they should try to acquire.
Oh, it's definitely interesting. You want a veteran right shot defenseman that's going to add some grit to your D core here. So it's the right name. Tanev will be a free agent. He's on the last year of his deal with the Calgary Flames. Here's where I get a little iffy, Ross. Tanev, 34 years old, likely going to be traded at the deadline to a contender. I feel like that's probably going to happen. I don't think the Flames are going to hold on to him. So he's going to get a taste of that playoff action. And turning 35 as a unrestricted free agent, I have a hard time thinking that of all the places that are going to offer him probably decent money, a chance to win in what's likely going to be one of the last, if not the last contract he signs, I have a hard time seeing the Ottawa Senators selling themselves as the best opportunity for him to be successful. Because Tanev doesn't have a cup, does he?
No, he doesn't. He's only got 41 playoff games under his belt, and 17 were in the bubble with Vancouver.
Yeah. So look, like you said, this is the right direction. That's the right type of guy. If you can get him in free agency, cool. But I just put on my, I took off my Sens hat and put on my realistic hat and was like, why would Chris Tanev choose to come here out of all the places? So I don't know. Maybe they can work some magic and get the right contract that he's looking for and sell the Ottawa area and the culture. But seems like a long shot to me.
For those watching on YouTube, Pilsey's realistic hat looks a lot like his Sens hat.
Yeah, it's very similar. Very similar.
We'll allow that. But hey, at least the rumors are turning. And if there is a Sens trade, we will be breaking it down live as soon as possible. We are your team every day. We had 11 podcasts posted last week alone, Pilsy, in the 7 days because they played last Saturday and Sunday. So it's one of those where we are your team every day. We've got the PWHL report, which is going to be a weekly thing. Great to see the ladies out there. Our friend of the show, Emily Clark, was out there with some of her teammates, Brianne Jenner, to name a few. And then we've got another one of those coming later this week. Over the All-Star break, we're going to touch on the 2024 draft, and Pilsy and I are in talks to get our boots on the ground in Vegas, the last in-person draft. It feels like a special one, and man, the amount of right shot defensemen and defensemen overall in the top 15, a lot to like. That's all. I'll leave it at that because people are sick and tired of the draft. I understand, but we are going to dip our toes in the draft coverage, and we're going to have a couple other interviews here lined up for you on Locked On Senators. Pilsy, let's get these Nashville Predators out of the way here, and then we'll do our third segment on the Ottawa Senators, our Locked On player to watch, and a whole lot more. But these pesky Nashville Predators are they're never an easy game, right? Because they've got the goaltending, and I know UC Saros hasn't been at his best per se this season. A .904 save percentage isn't going to jump out, and for him in particular, that's not great. They've also lost 3 of their last 4 games, and the 2 wins were against 2 teams that are really struggling in Minnesota and LA, and they only beat those guys by 1 goal each. But 1-3 in their last 4 games, and they've only scored 7 goals, yet allowed 13. This, Pilsy, would you call it a winnable game for the Ottawa Senators?
This is a beatable roster. If I'm the Ottawa Senators, I'm looking at this as a huge bounce back game after an embarrassing loss, especially you're at home. You got to treat the good people of the CTC better than that New York Rangers loss.
You have to. And here's the lineup that is going to expect to play for the Nashville Predators. Kind of cool yesterday, a moment for the Nashville Predators at Ottawa U. They were practicing on the GG's ice surface at Ottawa U, and they all banded together and gave Mark Borowiecki a heavy bag, classic gift for Boro Cobb, with kind of a testament to his career with the Ottawa Senators and Nashville Predators. So there's a cool video behind the scenes. You can check that out on the Nashville Predators website, on Twitter as well, where, Roman Josi introduces that for Boro, who's living in Ottawa, but still works as a pro development coach for the Nashville Predators. Similar role to what Wade Redden is doing for the Ottawa Senators. Here's the lineup tonight. Ryan O'Reilly, the factor is starting at center. We've got Philip Forsberg on left wing and Gustav Nyquist on right wing. The second line is Cody Glass between Philip Novak and Luke Evangelista. The third line, Colton Sissons with Yakov Trenin and Dennis Gurianov. The fourth line, Michael McCarron with Cole Smith and Kiefer Sherwood. On defense, we've got Roman Josi with Dante Fabro. We've got Ryan McDonough with Luke Shen. And we've got Jeremy Lauzon with Alexandre Carrier. UC Saros expected to start in goal. Pillsy, my lookout player, just because I had a little chuckle when I started saying his name. Remember the 25 minutes where we thought Philip Forsberg was going to come sign in Ottawa because he was going to Ryan Spooner's wedding? And everyone was like, wait, he's in Ottawa. He's been reported to be in Ottawa. Philip Forsberg is coming to the Senators. And then he had a funny post on Instagram where he said, wow, Boro, turns out there actually is more to Ottawa than just the fields of Canada, because away teams, they only see out in Canada. So I guess he was staying downtown at the Andaz or something. And you know what? We left a good impression on Philip Forsberg, but not enough because he re-signed long-term in Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, Ross, I feel like when you're offered, 60 million by the Nashville Predators, it's going to take a lot more than the fields of Canada and downtown Ottawa to get him to switch his teams there. But that, I do remember that was funny. Is Forsberg your lookout player? Is that what you're alluding to?
He is. And I think I said Philip Novak as well. That name for some reason was in my head. It's Tommy Novak. And we should actually put a little respect on his name too, because he kind of came out of nowhere as one of those guys who, you know, they've been kind of toiling away. He's 26 years old, right? You know, he played 4 years at the University of Minnesota, played a little ECHL, and then last year, had a bit of a breakout with 43 points in 51 games with the Preds. This year he's down to 21 and 38, but I should be getting his name right. That's Tommy Novak, Wisconsin native.
There you go, Tommy. Forsberg was going to be my lookout player, so I'll tag on a stat for you here. Please. Ross, I don't know if you know this, but Philip Forsberg has played 13 games up against the Ottawa Senators. Do you know how many goals he has?
Oh, I'm going to say 10.
1.
Whoa.
1 goal up against the Sens in 13 games. So I don't know. I got a bad feeling that he's going to pop off tonight.
And guess what? I'll pick up on that stat and run with it. Philip Forsberg scored the third goal in the 3-0 shutout win in Ottawa last year. So the last goal the Predators scored in Ottawa was Forsberg's only goal in his career against the Senators. Okay, up next, we'll get to the Ottawa Senators and what we expect from the Sens tonight in their game against the Predators. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at the Glebe Central Pub. You can check them out in the heart of the Glebe at 779 Bank Street. We love the Glebe Central Pub. Every single time we're in Ottawa, we're going to the GCP because, as Ross likes to say, the vibes are free at the GCP. I love their buffalo chicken wrap. I get it with fries every time, a nice cold pint to go along with that. And if you're an Ottawa Senators fan, you have to be a Glebe Central Pub fan because they're doing everything they can to get Sens fans to the games on time, in a good mood, and safely. The Sens shuttle bus is awesome. We have people let us know in the postcast chat, hey, I'm on the bus for the first time. Great vibes. It's always good reviews. Sue, the bus driver, will get you there on time. She knows how to get around the traffic and get out of that parking lot ASAP. Only $17 for a round trip. You go to the Glebe Central Pub early. The bus leaves, an hour and 15 minutes before the game, right at the pub. Then you go to the game, have a good time. Sue will meet you in the parking lot, bring you back to the pub, and you can keep the good times going. So check out the Glebe Central Pub, guys, 779 Bank Street, and let them know that the Locked On Senators sent you.
As the Ottawa Senators come into tonight's game against the Nashville Predators, they are doing so with a Sparty shuffle of sorts, but it's the Jacques shuffle, the lines in a blender, and you'd kind of expect that after things fell apart in the third period and the second period on Saturday evening against the New York Rangers. So the Ottawa Senators are coming into this game. The one thing that is the same is the Senators are sticking with that top line of Tim Stützle with Brady Tkachuk and Claude Giroux. They were Ottawa's best line, bar none, in that game against the New York Rangers, specifically in that first period. They're creating, they look good, they look dangerous, they stay together. Josh Norris is centering Matthew Joseph and Drake Batherson. They added a little bit of speed on that line, putting Joseph in the mix there. Shane Pinto will center Dominik Kubalik and Vladimir Tarasenko. And the fourth line is Rourke Chartier with Ridly Greig and Parker Kelly. No changes on the back end. It's Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub. It's Thomas Chabot with Jacob Chychrun. And it's Eric Brandstrom with Jacob Bernard Docker. There is a change in goal. Mads Sogaard will get his third start of the season. It's his fourth appearance after having to bail out the water from the sinking ship that Joonas Korpisalo left him when he allowed 4 goals on 4 shots to start the second period. Pilsy, give me some hope. Give me a locked-on player to watch.
All right, my locked-on player for tonight is number 9, Josh Norris. It's been tough sledding for Josh Norris recently, but coming off the tails of a victory in the Sens' fastest skater, Josh Norris won that. I think that was surprising to a lot of people, but hopefully you get a little boost of the momentum and you use that speed to go up against a Nashville Predators line, as you just heard us mention, that is very inexperienced. Like Josh Norris going up against Cody Glass. No offense to Cody Glass, but it's been a tough season for him. In 21 games, he only has 1 goal, 1 assist. So if I'm Josh Norris, you got to be looking at this like it's cookie night. You're up against a weaker line with a lot of young players on it. Tommy Novak and Luke Evangelista are the wingers flanking that second line. And he's got Matthew Joseph and Drake Batherson on his line. So there's no reason why that line can't succeed. And we talked about the power play units, Ross. Josh Norris is the trigger man on the top power play unit. This guy hasn't scored a goal since December of last year. We got to get it going here. We got to get it going for Josh Norris. It's been too long. So I want to see him have a big night. Number 9, my locked-on player, Josh Norris.
12 straight games without a goal for Josh Norris and played a season low 13 minutes and 31 seconds in that game against the New York Rangers. My locked-on player is Jake Sanderson. This guy is quietly elite. And I mean, it's incredible to see how great his game is when he plays more. It's like he wants the ice time. He wants to feel it. But guess what, Pilsy? Last night for him was one of his lowest time on ice this season. He only played 20 minutes and 48 seconds, -2 against the Rangers. I want to see him dominate this game because there's a defenseman on the other side, Roman Josi, who's going to play big minutes and going to be a elite offensive puck mover every time he's on the ice. I expect, and it's huge expectations for a guy who's still 21 years old, but I expect Jake Sanderson to be every bit the player on this side for Ottawa in terms of getting the puck to the offensive forwards in the right position, to play in his own zone well, to have an active stick, to play along the boards, to win battles. That's his job tonight as a shutdown pair. You look at it, and we talked with Nashville, they've got a legit shutdown pair with Ryan McDonough and Luke Schenn. Can Ottawa get that with Sanderson and Zub? They're going to need to, because the top line for Nashville does a lot of their damage with O'Reilly, Forsberg, Nyquist. When that line's out there, Ottawa's going to have Sanderson and Zub out there, and this is an important matchup for them, Pilsy. And that's why Jake Sanderson is my locked-on player. And that brings us to the most important player. And we always put out a poll on Twitter at Sens Central. Who's your locked-on player to watch tonight? And Pilsy, whenever we put Tim Stützle or Brady Tkachuk, those guys win. But not tonight. And I wanted to test the waters with this one. Would they win if I put them in? Now, we're 400 votes in. I just tweeted out a couple minutes ago. And it is so deeply favored towards Mads Sogaard. 63% of the early returns. And, I mean, you got to understand why.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big opportunity for Mads Sogaard. This Nashville Predators team doesn't have a lot of offensive punch outside of their top unit, top line, and top D pair. So I'm hoping Sogaard can have a big game. And especially Ross, you cut him some slack because he's coming in to a game cold, but he didn't exactly have the best performance in his time in relief up against New York either. So you want to be like, okay, I'm starting this game. It's a much less offensively talented team than the Rangers. I want Mads Sogaard to have a big game here. So I love that the Citizens are also locked onto him. And just quickly, a note on Sanderson. You mentioned it, but I want to emphasize it. I want Sanderson to really be taking a look at how Ryan McDonagh plays. That's a guy that if you can have Jake Sanderson kind of follow the career arc, maybe a little bit more offensive numbers, but similar style of play to Ryan McDonagh, that'd be pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, I think so too. And funny enough, 3 years ago, wow, I just typed in both their names together. How funny is this? Corey Pronman, a hilarious guest of the show, tweeted this out 5 years ago. If Jake Sanderson became as good of an NHL player as Ryan McDonagh, is that worth a top 5 pick? Makes you think. 57% say yes.
Yeah.
And this was before the draft. So very interesting from Corey Pronman, who's got a snazzy new profile picture. Ladies,
I was going to say, that's a very different looking Corey Pronman than what we're used to here.
Yeah, it is. Now, Mads Sogaard, I want to continue that conversation, but before we get to that, I do want to get back to the lines because
I got a lot to say here, Ross. I wanted to get back to this.
Go off, Pilsy.
First things first, I can't believe that there is still the mindset, the opportunity that this coaching staff believes that putting Kubalik and Tarasenko on a line together can have any sort of success. That drives me absolutely nuts. Every single game, those two have been on the same line. Waste of time. Like they have the same skill set. Tarasenko is the guy you want to get the puck, but you got to try to get it to Kubalik because if he's not using his shot, he's a complete zero defensive liability. So I feel like you're just canceling out Kubalik and Tarasenko's ability there, and then you're not getting the best out of Pinto having those guys on his line. So right off the bat, that gets my blood boiling having those two guys there. Now, the thing is, Ross, we talked in our pre-show meeting and you kind of said, wow, Ridly Greig being demoted to the fourth line. We got to get into that. And I agree. It's definitely in discussion. But for me, the narrative on this is more, this is a last ditch desperate effort to try to shine up Kubalik before they ultimately ship him off. And basically, I think the Sens are trying to say, hey, instead of getting a 6th round pick in return, let's see if maybe we can get a 4th. As
long as it's in this draft, Pilsy, because we're going to be there, boots on the ground, cheering on that 5th round pick.
Yeah, true. So that's the only thing I can consider here. That's the only conceivable logic I can see for Kubalik being on that 3rd line with Tarasenko. Now let's get to Ridly Greig here, unless Ross, you want to jump in on that point.
No, I think that's fair. They've played together too much. However, never with Shane Pinto is he the glue that can make this thing stick together.
All right. I like that spin zone. Nice. Ridly Greig goes from first line center and successful first line center to a winger, then down to the 3rd line. And now we see Ridly Greig now on the 4th line. And we talked about how a little while ago, it did seem like Jacques Martin had him on the bench for a bit, but I really can't see a situation where Ridly Greig has earned to be put all the way down on the 4th line here. He's still one of the better players. He plays a consistent game. And what really upsets me about this, Ross, when I first saw that, when Claire Hanna tweeted out the lines, I was like, wow, Ridly Greig on the 4th line. Okay, the shining up Kubalik, not a big deal. Greig will get his minutes on the power play. Ridly Greig is not on either power play unit. That really shocked me that not only is he not going to get his ice time just 5-on-5, but he's not even going to get an opportunity on the power play as well. So I'm starting to wonder if maybe Ridly Greig is in the doghouse a little bit with Jacques Martin.
Well, Steve Steo speaking with Sens season ticket holders, and shout out to Bring Back Lee, Kevin Lee, great friend of the show too. He posted some of the quotes coming out of that, and he mentioned that Ridly Greig's hit a bit of a lull. And this is coming from Steve Steos, and I mean, not easy for him to kind of be moving around positions, kind of that Swiss Army knife, but he is at that point in his career too, where it's like, now you're getting to see what the rigors of an NHL season is. Last year, he played 20 NHL games. He's already up to 35 now and dealt with a bit of an injury in the middle there too. So I'm just seeing this as the ebbs and flows of development for Ridly Greig. They said in that same presser, they see him and Shane Pinto as a hugely important piece, the two of them, to the success of this franchise going forward. So if this happens over an extended period of time, then I think we can start being like, oh, what's going on? Is this cool? Is this all right? But look, that like Chartier and Kelly have been pretty reliable players. So I think that if you're looking at it from less from a minute standpoint and more from a chemistry standpoint, I could see that being a thorn in the side type line with Kelly and Greig forechecking over and over again. So that's my spin zone here. I want him to play more than the 9 minutes and 33 seconds he played against Boston. His minutes were right back up. Now, there was a lot of garbage time in that game against the Rangers, but he did play almost 16 minutes in that game. But yeah, I'm not going to be worried. I'm not going to be alarmed by this short term, but it can't be a situation where Ridly starts averaging 10, 12 minutes a game, because so far this season, his average is 14-30, and I want it to at least stay that the rest of the season.
Yeah, and the thing too, Ross, with this, and this will kind of blend into one of my keys to victory here, I do like that line of Greig, Chartier, and Kelly. Like you mentioned, that's a line where Kelly's been a good, consistent player. That's a guy who's been in the good books of Jacques Martin. Chartier, we all know what he does, good defensive game. And then Ridly Greig can provide some offense while providing a bit of grit. The Nashville Predators lead the league in hits, and it's not even close. I think they're 200 hits more than the next team, and hits per game, they're getting like 23 hits per 60, I think. So this Nashville team, I mentioned, they don't have the offensive firepower of years past, but they play a good, hard, physical game. So maybe this is a scenario where we see that fourth line, guys like Ridly Greig, Parker Kelly, who are among in the top of hits for the Ottawa Senators. We see them get chucked out there a little bit more 5-on-5 to bring that physical presence. So a key to victory for me, Ross, is don't let Nashville's physicality force you into making rash decisions and turning that puck over, because you don't want to deal with getting the body laid on you. So that's going to be a key to victory here, is don't let the Predators win the physical battle here.
I like that, but don't take don't make it too much the other way, because I mean Brady Tkachuk has fought Jeremy Lauzon already in his career, and we don't need Brady fighting a third pair defenseman again. Although, look, they didn't lose the game because Brady Tkachuk fought.
No.
They did not do that. It was on the other guys while he was in the box to be better. But no, I like that. Now, Pillsy, giveaways is huge, and that'll be my key to victory, is picking up off of that. The Senators are second in the NHL in giveaways per 60 minutes, so per game, more or less.
Does not surprise me.
Nashville's fourth. So there's going to be lots of giveaways this game. Both average over 9 per game. Only the Edmonton Oilers have more, near 10 in the National Hockey League. So I'm going to be looking at who can take advantage and pounce when the other team is giving the puck away, because it will happen throughout the course of this game. Pillsy, final topic we got to get into, Mads Sogaard. Like, what is a successful game outside of stopping the puck? Is there something that you're going to be looking for Mads Sogaard tonight?
Honestly, Ross, and this is, you said goalie stopping the puck, Captain Obvious there, so I'll be sidekick obvious. I don't know. There's something there. But I will tag along with that obviousness, and I'm not really too concerned with how he plays. Just get the win. Like, even if I stop the puck and get the win, that's why you come to this show, #goalie-friendly show, advanced analytics here. But literally, it's just a morale boost. Like, you had that game where you come in for relief up against New York. I feel like Mads, we know he's a guy that wears his heart on his sleeve. He was not happy with how that went for him, rightfully so. So even if this ends up being a 5-4 overtime win or something wild like that, Ross, it doesn't matter. Get that win so you can get the boost up against a big game, the final game up against the Detroit Red Wings that is coming later on this week. So for me, it's just play a simple, calm game and find a way to get a win no matter what it takes.
I like that. For me, it's just give the team confidence in front of you. Like, no deflating goals, especially in the first half of the game. No deflating goals. Too many of those have just sucked the life out of the building, more importantly than the team. And if you're going to the game, like, give these boys a good push in the first 10 minutes. I want to hear some go Sens, go Chance. I want to hear all that, because the Senators need to win this game for my sanity and for the confidence of the group going into a must-win game against Detroit, where, you know what? Kick them when they're down. Their Lions just lost on Sunday. Kick these Red Wings. They're buzzing right now, by the way. The Red Wings record in January is insane.
Yeah.
So to end it off and bring them back to reality, I think would be very, very welcome for these two fan bases who've been going head to head, cutthroat on social media all year. But you can't look past Nashville. It's the only game in the NHL tonight, Pilsy. So that'll be very fun. Final thoughts from you on today's show?
Yes, final thoughts for me, and we teased it earlier on in the show, so we can get into it now. But friend of the show, Oskar Pettersson, Pistol Pete, pew 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 pew. He is, Ross said, coming to America, but asterisk, he's coming to Canada,
North America.
Okay, as he is coming.
I bet in Sweden, I bet you it's considered coming to America.
Okay, we'll put the poll up on Sens Central. Swedish citizens. Is Oskar Pettersson coming to America, yes or no?
Guess what?
What?
They're in Syracuse this weekend. Yes!
Oh, nice. Okay, that saves you. Well, or you could have said coming to the American Hockey League. So actually, you know what? There's a lot of ground for you to stand on that argument.
Pilsy's smashing the panic button after that take.
Yeah, so I'll just take the L silently here and go back to Oskar Pettersson.
Can confirm, though, he is arriving in Belleville tonight. So expect him to be on the ice at practice sooner rather than later.
Okay, yeah, and this is good news, Ross. Unfortunately, not the World Juniors tournament that we expected from Oskar Pettersson, just the one assist and his ice time.
No opportunity.
Yeah, his ice time wasn't that high, averaging around 11, and then it really sank in that game up against the Americans that they lost. But then you talk about ice time sinking. He goes back to the SHL. His first game, he plays 15 seconds. Like, that's comical. Like, that's literally just taking a draw and coming back on the ice, going back to the bench. Like, that is wild. The next game, 0, then 10-30, 7-4, 9-8 to 8.5. And in 26 games with Rogel this year, just the one assist, -9. So that's not where you want his development to be. So I think the plan all along was to bring him over to Belleville once the year was over in Sweden. But I think it's a good move for Pettersson and for the organization for Belleville to get some fresh blood in here. And it's going to be exciting to see Oskar Pettersson play for the Belleville Senators.
And he's a right winger, so I'm curious to see where he fits in the mix. Now, are they just going to let him practice for a week or two before going in? But they could have a right wing depth of Igor Sokolov, Tyler Boucher, and Oskar Pettersson now. So some good prospect depth there for the Belleville Sens. And Belleville's been struggling, man. They lost both games this weekend.
It was a wild game up against Grand Rapids. Oh my God.
Yeah, and Garrett Pilon's another right winger for them as well. Roby's been hurt, lefty, but that's too bad to see because he had 20 points in 22 games. They just haven't been able to figure it out since that run. They had the 8 straight wins, and since then it hasn't been great. But hopefully they can get back. They've got 2 games this weekend in Syracuse, divisional games, always important in the American Hockey League. And then they're going to break for their All-Star break. So I'm hoping maybe to get them in for Saturday, right? Like let them learn the systems, get over the jet lag, go there, maybe watch the first game, and then get him in on Saturday. But he'll join the show maybe over the All-Star break. If not, we'll get him in right after. Told him to get comfy and then hop back on. But he's friend of the show, been on twice. So if you want to get to know Oskar Pettersson, there's plenty of content out there on our YouTube that you can get from him. We're also going to have Emily Clark back on sooner rather than later. She was out there at the Senators All-Star game, and I believe she's also going to be taking part in the NHL All-Star festivities with her friend Emrance Mashmeyer. So that's all coming up on the PWHL report over the next couple weeks. Final thoughts from me, though, Pilsy. I watched the Alexander Daig. The chosen one. And there's a lot I didn't know. And I recommend, obviously, like I was born in 92. So the Daig phenomenon was like at the height of it during like the first 4 years of my life. But when you look back, it really, and it's sad to say, and I'm not spoiling anything, I don't think here, but like, I think the media kind of got that guy off the rails. Like the media circus around him, that couldn't have been easy for him. And you look at it like they made this point, and it's like when Sidney Crosby came in the league, he lived with Mario Lemieux. Like Daig had nobody to lean on in Ottawa. And like you look at his stats, like, yeah, it wasn't first overall pick worthy, but like pretty decent.
Solid. Yeah.
Pretty decent. He played 301 games with Ottawa and had 172 points. Like
for a young guy on a terrible expansion team, not bad.
From 18 to 22. And there was one year where he got hurt after 50 games, broke his wrist, had 5 goals in 50 games that year. So interesting. Kind of a funny one too is seeing Rick Bowness in that video very briefly, saying he's going to step in, he's going to be our player right away. So crazy that he's still in the league this far later, but highly recommend anyone who hasn't watched it. This isn't an ad or anything. I just really enjoyed it, and kind of cool to see the Sens kind of in the center of it all.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that one out. And yeah, the Alexander Daig, what a interesting piece of Ottawa Senators history.
2-time Swiss League champion Alexander Daig. But yeah, he'll live in infamy in Senators history forever. And I hope that the history books can look back a little bit better, because it feels like the media definitely tore him to shreds. Let's put it that way. And that's unfortunate. But tonight, let's build up the boys. I know we were tough on Korpisalo. It's because we love him. It's because we want him to have success. But you got to make saves on the long shot. Somebody was saying on social media, is it the gold cage that's hampering his ability to see far shots?
I don't know. I'm a big believer in look good, play good, but damn.
Got to ask the questions when
that theory is crumbling. That
was at the Kreider goal. I rewatched it, and it's even worse upon second viewing.
I'm not going to watch it again.
It was above the top of the circle. A little wrist shot with no traffic.
Yeah.
Yikes. Anyways, hopefully better results tonight. We'll have the postcast for you immediately following tonight's game. So make sure you check it out. We're going to put up the video link early so you can join in. You can put notify me and all that right afterwards. I want to hear Danger Flutes tonight so badly. Yes. I need to hear Danger Flutes tonight. So Senators, make it happen. Hey, look at it from a wider lens, Pilsy. I know we get caught up in the day-to-day, and that loss felt like 10 losses against the New York Rangers, but the Senators right now are on a run where they're 4-2-2 in their last 8. 6-2-2 in their last 10 would look pretty good at the All-Star break.
It would.
But they need to get 2 wins for that to happen. We'll see if they can do it. We'll chat tonight in the postcast. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.